Hey everybody, and welcome to another Dueling Rabbits Productions video. Today's Drawloom related topic is one that in the past I have peripherally but never explicitly addressed: ensuring clear sheds by returning ground shafts to neutral. Feeling dubious? Here's why it's important. On a typical single harness counter shed setup, every shaft is in motion for every pick. As an example, let's look at the tie-up for some Swedish lace kitchen towels I'm working on. Since I'm using my countermarch, I've got tie-ups to both sets of lambs. My upper lambs determine which shaft sinks when I press a treadle, and my lower lambs determine which shafts go up. I have 4 shafts and 4 treadles, which means I have 16 cords. Here, for example, we see that I've tied up the front 2 shafts to my upper lambs and the rear 2 to the lower lambs. These 4 cords run to treadle 3. Beside these, I have the reverse. The 2 front shafts are attached to the lower lambs and the 2 rear shafts to the upper lambs. These shafts are connected to treadle 4. Whenever I press a treadle, every lamb goes into motion. This translates to every shaft going either up or down for a true countershed action. Every shed is reset when I press a new treadle, because every shaft has a designated action for every weft pick. Now, drawlooms don't work this way. For most setups, at least some ground shafts are omitted from certain treadle tie-ups. Consider the tie-up for 4-shaft twill damask, for example. In this case, my upper lambs are configured for pattern, and my lower lambs are configured for ground. Each treadle is tied up to 2 lambs only. On the left here, I have 1 sinking connection to treadle 1 and 1 rising connection to treadle 1. The 2 middle lambs, and hence the 2 middle shafts, remain at neutral when treadle 1 is pressed. You can see where, compared to a 4-shaft single harness setup, empty holes between my 2 treadle cords appear to indicate something is missing. When I press treadle 1, only 2 shafts fly into action. Shaft 1 at the back goes up, and shaft 4 at the front goes down. The middle shafts remain at rest. Treadle 2 also has just 2 connections, but unlike treadle 1, these are connected to the 2 central shafts. The foremost and rearmost shafts have no connection this time. When I press treadle 2, shaft 2 goes up, and shaft 3 goes down. But look at this. Instead of lying at rest, my 2 treadle 1 shafts haven't budged from the previous positions. They are, emphatically, not where they need to be. Let's press on. Treadle 3 is the reverse of treadle 2. Again, only the central shafts are in motion. When I press treadle 3, shafts 2 and 3 change position, which is good. But my outermost shafts are drifting in space, which is not good. Finally, treadle 4, which is the opposite of treadle 1. Shaft 1 and 4 are back in play, but by this point I'm not sure any of my shafts know where they're supposed to be. The sheds are more or less unweavable and will continue to worsen as time goes on. What we need is a strategy to ensure that ground shafts, whether they've been up or down, snap back to neutral when their treadle is released. Although there are many solutions, here are my favorite ways to make that happen. Method 1. Buttonhole elastic on the lower lambs. If you've seen any of my previous videos, you'll know this is my go-to strategy on my Glamocra Muirhead vertical countermarch drawloom. The long lower lambs allow me to rig elastics easily and attach them to the loom's gables. Each lamb has 2. The elastic above works to snap a lamb back up when a treadle is released, bringing its shaft down from a raised position. The lower elastics act on each lamb to raise a shaft that has been lowered. It's a pretty slick system and does its job well, and it's easy to rig the elastics because all the work is done on the outside of the loom, where there's room to maneuver. I like elastics a lot. Once they're set up, they can be forgotten about while one weaves away in drawloom bliss. Buttonhole elastic is affordable and readily available. Cheap and cheerful is always a winner in my book. But as a system, it's not perfect. Elastics inevitably wear out and can provide insufficient oomph for larger looms. Try different materials to see if you can find something stronger and more durable. Bungee cords, for example, can work really well. In my opinion, the biggest problem with this approach is that it only really works on a vertical countermarch with long lower lambs. This is limiting. What if you have a horizontal countermarch or are using damask pulleys? In that case, elastics with a leveling treadle can be a better solution. In this setup, we suspend each of our upper shaft bars in elastics hung from the countermarch or counterbalance beam. The elastics are adjusted so they almost, but not quite, lift the ground shafts from their neutral position when they're at rest. If you've seen my video on damask with a weaving sword, you'll know what I'm talking about. These elastics return lowered ground shafts back up to neutral with aplomb. And sometimes that's enough. I've found it to be so on the Julia Drawloom, for example. But sometimes shafts need to be coaxed back down again, as we're seeing here. This is where a leveling treadle comes into play. We're back inside the loom now, and you can see my 4 cords running between the 4 treadles and the upper lambs. These are configured for my straight twill structure. Over here, I have 4 additional cords. These are all attached, in turn, to a 5th treadle, farther away from the lamb pivot. Here are my 4 treadles for my structure. Here is my leveling treadle. When I press my leveling treadle, all my ground shafts are pulled down together. When I release the treadle, the elastics bring them all back up to neutral. Although sometimes the treadle itself has enough weight to do its job on its own, it is more typical to press the treadle at intervals during the weaving. I personally like the rhythm of pressing the treadle to clear the shed after every pick. Treadle 1, leveling treadle, treadle 2, leveling treadle, treadle 3, leveling treadle, and so on. I reserve my left foot for the purpose and treadle the structure of the cloth with my right. I find the benefits to my sheds are inestimable. A leveling treadle can be rigged on just about any drawloom setup you care to name, and I personally enjoy the rhythm of weaving in this way. Lots of weavers do. But it's not for everybody. Apart from all the extra legwork, the strategy requires an extra treadle, and the setup can get out of whack from time to time. I've found that the cords can stretch, and that they may need to be adjusted now and again. If the treadle stops working well, it's almost always because one of the shafts is not equalizing sufficiently with its neighbors. A quick adjustment under the treadle does the trick. But of course, not everybody wants the extra bother of all that additional treadling. If this is the case, weighting the treadle can be a lifesaver. Here, I've just bungeed a 3-pound workout weight to the bottom of the treadle. A lighter one would probably do just as well. Hanging just above the floor, the weight removes the need to press the treadle manually, and it works great. This brings me to my favorite method of all time. Counterweights hung from the countermarch jacks. They can be rigged to both horizontal and vertical countermarches, and for my money, they can't be beat. On my Ulaciris with its vertical countermarch, one weight is hung from every jack, with 2 cords top and bottom. Thus, the counterweights provide an opposite action to any jack in motion, regardless of the direction of its kick. On my UC, the weights weigh about 1.5 kilograms each. These are calibrated to counteract the tension of the warp together with the weight of the lambs and treadles. The result is a flawlessly balanced system where treadling is light and shafts spring back to precise neutral every time with a satisfying snap. If I were queen of the weaving world, every drawloom in my realm would use counterweights, and that would be that. To my way of thinking, it is worth the time and trouble it takes to rig the weights whether or not they were intended for the loom in the first place. One of these days, I plan to install weights on my Glamocra Muirhead drawloom with its vertical countermarch. Although the cords could be slung over a simple bar on the outside of the gable, it is possible to procure from Glamocra these cunning pulleys, which allow for up to 6 weights each. They are mounted here, just below the countermarch on the side of the loom where the lamb pivots are. I'm thinking that workout weights, the sandbag kind with the grommet on the top, would hang perfectly from the jacks, although I suppose it wouldn't be hard to get proper weights manufactured. To accommodate all the extra cordage, I think it would be a good idea to screw eye bolts into the existing holes in the jacks. If any of you decide to go this route, I hope you'll let me know. I'll report back with my own findings in due course, and, as always, thank you so much for watching.